You're listening to The Ground Down, a podcast where we sit down with industry leaders and experts to discuss issues that affect the civil engineering industry. This podcast is brought to you by EHRA Engineering. Welcome. We hope that you enjoy the show.
Welcome to EHRA Engineering's podcast series, The Ground Down. My name is Jim Russ, President, CEO, and Chairman of the Board of EHRA Engineering. Today we have our very own Tim A., who is a professional landscape architect and a LEEP AP credentialed practice area leader of EHRA Engineering's Landscape Architecture Services team. Thank you very much for joining us today, Tim.
Thank you, Jim. I'm glad to be here.
A little bit about EHRA Engineering. As a multidisciplinary civil engineering firm, we are always looking for opportunities to share more and teach others about our industry and our services. We have an exceptional team of accomplished professionals, including licensed professional engineers, engineers in training, certified planners, registered professional land surveyors, licensed professional landscape architects, civil designers, and master technicians. The amazing professionals in each of our practice areas work together seamlessly to support our clients, city, county, state, and other governmental agencies in their respective missions to create optimal conditions, amenities, and services for the communities, individuals, and companies that rely on them. EHRA Engineering takes pride in our storied contribution to the region's history, growth, and success, and in our reliable approach to innovative project planning and design. Today, we want to highlight the firm's landscape architecture practice area and to celebrate the World of Landscape Architecture Month. So, with that being said, we're going ahead and get into the meat of the podcast. Tim, please share a little bit about your 40-year career in landscape architecture. Let's give our listeners some insights to your extensive background in the industry. You bring experience in the design services we offer here at EHRA Engineering. Tell us how that experience was gained and how it is applied today.
Well, Jim, I like to think that I've experienced a very people-friendly career in solving places for people. It's been an experience run that has included projects from design build to residential to commercial, streetscapes to resorts to sea level rise projects, and even amateur and professional league sports to parks. All have been primarily people focused, with that result being the end goal there. I started out in the mid 80s in this career, graduated from college and then came to Texas. And I started doing design build. And from that, you learn quickly what you design has to be buildable and constructible and affordable. From there, I went to a landscape architecture firm and had a career with them. And then they were California based. And when they decided to close up their Texas office, I did a 7-year stint as a sole proprietor where you learn the business side of landscape architecture and design professions. So from that, the last half of this 40-year career I've had has been with engineers. And we've been doing private and public development projects. And with that, I've gotten to know a number of engineering techniques, as well as what survey has to go through, all the other engineering aspects from hydrology to structural, and been fortunate to be exposed to just a wide variety of projects and a countless number of individuals with have talent in both the design and construction industries. So it's been a great career and it's been ongoing. I couldn't get to EHRA fast enough.
Well, we're certainly glad to have you on our team, Tim. It goes without saying. As mentioned before, April is World Landscape Architecture Month. At EHRA Engineering, we're proud of our landscape architecture team and the incredible work they put into shaping healthy, resilient, and beautiful places for all to enjoy. Please share with us what you would like the listeners to know about the landscape architecture profession.
Landscape architecture has a number of different definitions, and they're very broad in their expertise. A lot of landscape architects go into various aspects from planning to policy work to design to construction and that sort of thing, and many professions in between, marketing, graphic design, that all those are included in that. So we're oftentimes looked at as kind of the in-between professional that provide options to achieve project goals while moderating the engineering aspects and the architectural design purity of a project. And in so doing, we have that talent of also being able to moderate and negotiate a design solution. So with that, we know land planning, engineering, architecture, structural drainage, horticulture, some marketing, maintenance, resiliency, community development, all those different aspects we touch in our day-to-day job. And so it's real important. So I like to think of it, if we were to break it down, you know, when I say we're in between all these professions, that's exactly it. You know, so we're working with the engineers, they define it as it works. And with the planning people, their definition, it makes sense. Survey, this has some limits. Architecture, it's a shelter, and construction, it can be built. And when it comes to landscape architecture, we combine all those aspects of a project design and say, this is a place for people. So how does it work? How does it make sense? Is it within the limits? Is it buildable? Is it a shelter for people to come and enjoy? And we create those in between all those other design professionals. So you start to see understand the importance of this profession and how it can contribute to a very successful end result for project designs.
Tell us about the vast range of projects landscape architecture responsible for bringing life that people might not be aware of.
You know, landscape architecture, you know, so often people think when they hear the word landscape architect that we're the ones that pick up a shovel and dig a hole for a tree. And that's, you know, that's just another aspect of what landscape architects can get into, but that's generally not what we do. We do planting design, and we understand the importance of that. But in applying that horticultural knowledge, we need to know what the right plant is for the right place and that sort of thing. So what we really strive for is doing our landscape architecture up front of a project. And with that, it makes a better community when we're able to do that. And when I say up front, you know, it's the ability to locate a park as part of the community plan. It's how to align a roadway that seeks interest along its route and appeal to the driver. We connect people across the community and keep them off the streets. So we look at how green belts are connected within the community. And we understand grading, and with engineering, and especially in Houston, grading is so important, and its usefulness and its balancing the cut and fill and the cost associated with moving dirt or importing dirt or exporting dirt, and the end user challenges and their experiences. It all starts to make sense. So we grade not only for effect, but we also grade as a sculptural element in our design. We understand tree cover and the limited tree cover that we do have, and the importance of taking advantage of that for people enjoyment as well as nature's benefit, keeping those birds and wildlife intact and in the community. We also understand that everything has a front yard and everything has a backyard. And when I say that, I'm not talking about an individual house necessarily, but think of it as a project. There's a front yard to the project and there's a backyard to the project. And the importance of each is different from each other, but one is not any less important. So we know how to lot subdivisions for the premium lot sales. And we do that not just for yield, but also for giving that developer a chance to make a little bit more money and give those homeowners, those future homeowners, a great view or a reason to buy those lots that have some amenities to that. And lastly, in particular, that I'll mention here is detention. You know, and as you know, Jim, detention is huge in everything we do here, whether it's a subdivision, a site development, an individual lot, whatever the case is. There's always that detention component that we have to take into account. So we look at detention, and I call them reaches. How can we reach the detention up into a community? And when we do that, we're impacting stormwater quality as well as development costs. But also, and even more importantly, in today's market, we're giving an amenity opportunity for recreation and connectivity to the residents. So that's why we like to engage early. We do more than just plant those trees and dig those holes, but you can see we are well involved up front. We can make our landscape architecture a whole lot better. And we believe when we make landscape architecture better, then everybody else's job, engineering, architecture, surveyors also become a lot better as well.
As you said, it's not all about grabbing a shovel and planting a tree. We know that what you do creates life environments or environments for life, however you want to state it. It is the backbone of a successful development or any kind of a park setting or community that you're trying to establish. So with that being said, what are you going to do with it here at EHRA Engineering?
You know, what we're doing at EHRA Engineering is just that. Our colleagues, our design colleagues that are part of each and every project have welcomed the landscape architects to the table early on. And when we can do that, we come to the table with as many questions as we do challenges. And we don't mean to be, you know, that colleague that always has the questions and never the answer. We have the question that we can collectively come up with the answer that satisfies the needs of each one of our disciplines. So when we walk into that conference room for the first time, we know that really all the easy land has already been developed. And what we're coming up against is something that has, I call it land remnants. It's difficult to develop land. And so how are we going to address that? And a lot of times, as you know, in metropolitan areas, those remnant tracts of land are encumbered with regional and mobility issues, drainage, sometimes easements and pipelines and that sort of thing that we're going to have to get around. And so we come with those questions. How can we make those minimal impact to the community, but also amenitize them? Is there an opportunity to amenitize those? So, you know, those are the discussions we like to have with the design team. So, you know, in these times, development costs are a factor. As you know, material costs keep going up, labor shortages out there. So the decision process for design and the offerings that each project has, how can we reduce those costs without sacrificing the intent of the community, whether that's a metrics intent or a build out? You know, what ultimately, how are people going to enjoy this home? So with that, we like to start a project alongside and at the same time as our planners and our engineers. And we bring an open-end discussion to what we all strive to have with our designers, planners, and clients. And with that, we're able to, again, get our landscape architecture started early on in a project and not be that afterthought.
So to your point about when do you start, brings up a funny story that my father used to share with everybody back in his early days in the civil engineering and surveying business when he was a young man. This was back in the 50s when he went out onto a project site and talked to a contractor and asked him when he was going to go stake some of the project for him and whatnot, and he went up to the contractor and asked him, "Where do you want me to start?" And he looked down at him and he said, "Well, start at the starting point then, by golly." And so as you just described, when do you start? Well, that's at the very beginning, as you have mentioned in times past, at the very beginning stages of the evolution or idea of a project. Do you want to elaborate any further on that? Because I know you just mentioned some of that.
Well, the only thing I might add is that, historically on a design team, landscape architects have always come in too late in the process. And we come to the table with some ideas and they, one of the common elements is it's too late, we can't change it now, or, construction's already started, it's too late. And so if we can get in there and start at the starting point, as your father's advice was received, it makes landscape architecture a whole lot easier. So we welcome that change in attitude in the design community as well as the development community of getting the landscape architect involved early on, and not just in the purity of landscape architecture, but also in all aspects of the project design, whether that's engineering, planning, surveying, whatever the case may be. We have that ability to contribute some of those perspectives into the design conversation.
So with that being said, how do you go about getting a project to evolve, if you will?
The evolution of a project, again, it starts at the beginning, and if we can get that design started during the planning stages, when we first look at a project. Here at EHRA, we do a trips analysis on many tracks. And when we do those analysis of tracks for potential development, we're seeing those opportunities for recreation, amenities, attraction, marketing windows, all those sort of things come into play. And lo and behold, as soon as that discussion starts in the early stages, and especially when a developer's in the room, sometimes we have those meetings internal, sometimes we bring the potential buyers into those meetings. That discussion starts to evolve into a design discussion. We can do this, we can do that. Here's this opportunity that we can do. So, and again, going back to what we said earlier, drainage is so impactful in the Houston area. And so that's always at the forefront of a conversation for a project design. And how that design evolves is, how can we amenitize that drainage need and that drainage function? And so that evolution is a lot easier in the end when we started at the beginning of a project. We're not encumbered by, oh, it's too late, we can't change it now type of responses and attitudes of the design team or the developer. It's we're having that conversation up front, and then we implement it in the backside with our design and our construction documents and our bid documents and that sort of thing. So we like to see that evolution. Now, granted, not all projects are that way, and sometimes we get projects in that are just straight landscape architecture. And then we have to work with, the constraints of a project and find those opportunities and work to those budgets. But ideally, what we like to do is work side by side, elbow to elbow, shoulder to shoulder with the engineers and the architects of the design team, and let that evolution happen. As they grade a project, we're right there saying, Does it need to have that much relief? Does it need to have that much grade? Does it balance here? That sort of thing. The street alignments, are we taking care of that future homeowner and getting in and out of that particular community in a easy way, an understandable way, and not confusing way. And along that route, coming in and out, are they enjoying the drive? Being a streetscape or being a nice curvature to the horizontal and vertical alignment of the street and that sort of thing. So that evolution is ongoing from start to finish. And even in construction, it's still evolving because we discover additional constraints and additional opportunities once we're in the field. And a good contractor will call us up and say, hey, you guys didn't see this, it isn't on the plans. How can we adjust that? And working with that contractor, we're able to make those adjustments and evolve that design on the go and have the ability to stand there and say, is this going to cost more? Is it going to cost less? How are we going to do this? So that evolution never ends. And even at the punch list portion of a project, it's not ending. So it's an evolution we welcome.
Please share with the audience how landscape architecture, into the evolution of a project, how you incorporate natural features, natural conditions, sunlight, prevailing winds, temperatures, humidity, sunshine, cloud cover, etc., in a landscape architecture design project.
With that sort of aspects of design, what we do is typically start out with what we call a site analysis. Sometimes we do that in a plan view with an exhibit, but many times we're doing it, mentally, we're doing this as we design. In Houston, those environmental factors are a whole lot different than let's say in Dallas or in Austin. In Houston, we have a tremendous amount of sunshine. More than 2/3 of the year, probably 3/4 of the year, it has sunlight in Houston. It's full of sunlight with temperatures and humidities getting to the uncomfortable part measure more times than not. And so taking advantage of existing trees in a design is huge. A tree is a living being, so to speak, and with that, it takes countless years, decades, for a tree to mature and provide the shade, the comfort level that people seem to enjoy in parks, common areas, and curb appeals standpoints. So being able to save those trees wherever we can and preserving those trees to the benefit of the community is ideal. And those benefits to the community also include benefits to nature and the environment, the cooling effect of trees. Bottom line is this, every time we deal with existing vegetation and the preservation of it, we have to realize this is a living unit. And so there's care and there's upkeep associated with it. And when we give it the right care and upkeep, it starts to give the care and upkeep to the people that are enjoying it. Temperatures, humidity are all mitigated by shade. We like to use natural shade as often as we can, but sometimes we have to bring in artificial shade. And so that becomes a factor. And then the cooling breezes going under a canopy and the less humidity and everything else. Think of it like the old 1930s and 40s when contractors would build homes with a wraparound front porch. And they did that for various reasons, but the biggest reason was for comfort. Those porches gave comfort to get people out of a hot house and into a shaded area with a cooling breeze. and they had to wrap around porches because they could then sit on the porch at any time of the day to get out of the sunshine and take advantage of the cooling breeze. And so that's what we do with landscape architecture. We try to take advantage of what nature has given us to the best benefit that the community can have.
Go back to the thought real quick and share with everybody, if you don't mind, the relevance and the importance of, because you touched on it just a few minutes ago, about the relationship that you have with the contractor after design and after bid and during construction, because I know that is a key element to a successful landscape architect project.
You know, landscape architecture has to be flexible, and we know that. You know, I had a mentor early in my career. He owned a landscape construction company, and he would always say, you know, when we're doing landscape construction, we need to realize we're one of the last two people on a job site. The first one is the carpet layer, and we're the second one, the landscaper. And he said, so at the end of the budget, what is that owner going to do? He's going to put his carpet in before he does his landscape. So with that perspective in mind, that relationship with the contractor, knowing that engineering has been designed up ahead of us, has been installed, they've made adjustments. Sometimes architecture has been in, utility routes are different. We've discovered easements or other encumbrances to the project. By the time that landscape contractor gets on site, what we show on paper may very well be twice as challenging to the installation than we anticipated. So that relationship with the contractor is huge. And it's a different relationship than what we have here at EHRA with a paving contractor or a utility contractor. The landscape contractor is what's coming in behind all those other guys at the end of the project, at the end of that budget, and he's trying to green it up and make it look good. So when we are in constant contact with the contractor, and if that contractor is good or he's difficult to deal with, we still need to have that persistence in working with that contractor and insist upon having flexibility in what he's contracted to do. Knowing the industry, construction industry, having that experience up front early in my career has been able I've been able to have construction related conversations with the vocabulary, with the understanding of methods and means with that contractor. And 9 times out of 10, that contractor is willing to work with you. As long as you're communicating with them on a daily basis, you're quick in your responses, and you understand what that contractor is trying to achieve for you and for the benefit of the project. So I cannot emphasize the importance of design early on through bid documents, but also the importance of from bid documents to final acceptance is huge.
Well, it's a very symbiotic relationship between contractor, landscape architect, contractor, and engineer. As we quite often say, using a sports analogy, it's the catcher's job to make the pitcher look good. So it's always the contractor's job to make the architect and the engineer look good. So it's important that we maintain those relationships.
Absolutely.
You have some unique terms and phrases of the practice. Please share with the audience what those are and what they mean.
My list of terms and phrases are probably as wide as my wingspan here. So you know, some of the key words, and some of them are kind of self-explanatory, you know, like ideation. How do you come up with ideas? You know, creativity, taking advantage of the skills, and we're dealing with land and people. So what we like to do and what we like to promote in our conversations with the design team is we are creating a community. We're creating places for people. And so that phrase, creating places, people places, comes into play quite a bit. Vibrancy. A design needs to have some vibrancy, whether that's engineering or landscape architecture or architecture itself. We like to say, if it has vibrancy, then we've designed like we do. Give a damn. You'll have to excuse that, but that's, you know, one of the slang terms what we have. Design like you give a damn, because what you're doing is you're designing for people. We don't want to do placelessness in a community. That's not what we're after here. We're looking for places for people. All our ideas have deadlines, so we emphasize with our guys, bring ideas with deadlines, and we don't mean to rush design or design thinking, but we do know that this is a business, that we have to generate those ideas as well as the client has to afford them. So be current, anticipate always, another key phrase. Make more of less. So often, you know, with like we touched on earlier, the cost of materials, the shortage of labor, how can we do more with less? And with that, how can we multitask the dollar, the development dollar? So those are some phrases. I've got a whole long list of, you know, of others, like people need community. Is it a house or is it a home? Our engineers like it when I say, can we puny the pipe? And what I mean by that is shorten the length or shorten the size of it. And that comes down to planning. You know, can we plan that you can daylight that pipe a lot sooner than you traditionally would? So I call that puny the pipe. Let's not buck grade is another one. Let the lay of the land work to our advantage. Let's not go against it unless we have to. Don't back of house the detention. We know detention is going to be there in Houston. And so how can we, again, multitask that detention dollar into an amenity, into a park, into a connectivity greenbelt throughout the community? So, you know, and then the traditional hug the trees, you know, save this cluster of trees. Green the gray is another one that we like to use. We know that engineering is needed in our developments, and more times than not, we're talking about concrete. And so how can we green the gray? For every square foot of concrete, we have to detain it. And so in greening that gray, can we lessen that concrete need and bring in more green to soften that engineering design? So, you know, what I continue to emphasize with everybody I see is just this. What we design today is needed for what is to come, what's in the future. We design today for the future use of a project. And so in knowing that, you know, the green, the gray, the learn from and let nature solution the design, those things start to come into play. We're looking at a community not only that does initial sales up front, but has ongoing sales. It creates a home. It has longevity. It has durability. It has resilience. All that comes into play. And so my little catchphrases that I typically either bring to the design table with our engineers and planners, but I also have a habit, as you know, Jim, of taping up signs in my office or bringing rolls of what I call bumwat. You know, bumwat is my friend. So it's trace paper. As you know, I've got a roll of bumwat that has captured ideas all along the way on not only how to run a business, but how to run our practice in landscape architecture. So I could go on, Jim, but just know that that list continues to grow each and every day as we do more and more challenging projects.
You touched on a couple of those that I had highlighted as to, man, what in the heck is he saying with these? So tell us what Holyville is.
I've been in working for engineers for about 22 of my 41 years of a career, and you can imagine I've seen a lot of projects that are engineering marvels, as well as projects that have simplicity to the engineering solutions. And when I look at projects, the number one thing I look at from the engineering side of the thing is how many manholes do you need to have on this project? And I call it Manholeville. This community is full Manoville. And if it has too many manholes, then it's one of two things. Your codes are being ornery, or your design, your planning, your design, your engineering could have maybe taken a different look. Manholeville is just a term that says, hey, there's a lot of manholes here. What can we do to reduce them?
Knowing that we're running close on time here, tell us what you would like to share with everybody in conclusion as a wrap up to our conversation today, and again, and in celebration of World Landscape Architecture Month.
A lot of our conversation today, Jim, I hope that the takeaway from this is that there's a pattern here, and there's a commonality in the importance of landscape architecture in the design communities. And with that, the design today is a challenge for people for now and for tomorrow. And so we have to take non-traditional views and bring those ideas to the table in order to solve the issues of today, to create the community and create places for people to be. Great communities are had when land planning and engineering has landscape architecture in its solution. And I just want to emphasize that EHRA is very good about doing that, bringing the landscape architects to that table early on with the planners and the engineers, and listening to our ideas and conversations. So, great communities can no longer be the individual design of an engineer or the individual design of a planner or an architect, and to be successful. It takes a team to build this project. And so you need someone to come in. You need everybody to contribute to the what if conversation. Ask those questions. What if we did this? What if we did that? Can we do this? Can we do that? And so when you start to have those open-minded kind of conversations, then the design evolves. The solution changes from traditional means of doing design. And then, you start to weigh those options, those what if options. Sometimes they don't work and you got to go back to traditional, but at least you're thinking, what if we did this? Would it be better in the long term? So, if we approach our projects that, we're challenged, this has to be a people solution and not a tract solution. How can we throw this many lots on with minimal streets to a tract? But it's how are people going to enjoy our projects now and forever? So, we come to that table with that frame of mind. Then all of a sudden the enthusiasm starts to build. The experience starts to come to the top of people having ideas, and then they have the confidence to say, hey, let's do this, let's get this going, let's build something neat in the future. And landscape architecture is very much a part of that. And we're proud to be a part of that design conversation early on here at EHRA.
Tim, thank you again very much for participating in today's EHRA Engineering podcast series, The Ground Down. We enjoyed, along with the audience, the insightful conversation of today, and we're looking forward to possibly opening up this topic in another light at some point in the future. So we've been able to shed some light today on the incredible work that landscape architects do to create the spaces where people live, work, and play. So again, happy World Landscape Architecture Month to you and to all of your fellow landscape architects, and we wish everybody well and continued successful projects. So again, thank you for your time, Tim.
Thank you, Jim.